I'm absolutely delighted to have Shannon and Michael here with us. And I'm going to hand it over to Shannon first to introduce herself, give us a little bit of background, and then we'll head over to Michael, and I have a trailer video to share as a prep. So Shannon, over to you.
Thank you, Hope. Hi, everybody. So good to be here. I'm thrilled. I think the opportunity to be having this conversation, and we all come from the brand marketing world, many of us, and I think to have Michael here is such a thrill, because it is going to expand all of our minds in terms of how we've been talking about the metaverse in the last two sessions, and really the opportunity of where the metaverse is going to take us all in industry, in community, and how we define and redefine ourselves in the digital world. So I think that I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm Shannon Pruitt. I'm the chief global. I should say who I am. I'm the global chief content officer for Stagwell Media Network. I have a long history in content and storytelling and production and agency and digital. So, but today my current role is to work with all of our media agencies within the Stagwell Media Network and support them and guide our clients as it relates to strategic consulting in anything content and storytelling. So that can look like partnerships that we do. It can look like branded original funded content. It can look like opportunities within Web 3.0 and the metaverse. And it can look like influencer and all of the ways in which I've interacted with many of you in the past. You can't see you, but I'm sure you're there. I am delighted to be here today, again with Hope and Michael, because even in my own interactions and the way that I have been working within the metaverse with some of our clients, this is the frontier that I think, especially for those of us that have children or are also interested in lifelong learning, this is going to broaden and expand our minds. So I'm going to throw it over to Michael or Hope to go ahead and share the brilliance that is Michael.
So I'm going to jump in for a moment. I'm Hope Frank, and I have actually been with Influential on their executive board from the inception of the company. So I am absolutely delighted that they invited Michael to join us today, because I know that as marketers, I've been a CMO for 20 plus years, you don't think about education and learning necessarily as the trailblazer, the tip of the spear, the innovator and the trailblazer that has been inside the metaverse and working with it for the last 10 years. But Michael, who I had the joy to meet last summer, had created a company called Labster. And currently, they're the world's leading 3D immersive science platform. So there's already tens of millions of people, or tens of millions of students and thousands of universities using the platform. And I knew that it would probably be a big idea, kind of unusual for this group. For this group of marketers, that we'd be thinking about education. So I asked him to put together a quick clip to give us kind of a broad context before we jump over to his introduction. So, Influential.
Today, I am going to show you how this tablet and this virtual reality headset that I'm wearing is going to completely revolutionize science education. And I'm also going to show you how it can make any science teacher more than twice as effective. But before I show you how all of this is possible, let's talk briefly about why improving the quality of science education is so vitally important. If you think about it, the world is growing incredibly fast. And with that growth comes a whole list of growing challenges. Challenges such as dealing with global warming, solving starvation and water shortages, and curing diseases, to name just a few. And who exactly is going to help us solve all of these great challenges? Well, to a very large degree, it is these young students. So a couple of months back, we started asking ourselves, we have a wonderful team now of learning psychologists and teachers and scientists and game developers, and we started asking ourselves, how can we keep ourselves to our promise of constantly reimagining education? And today I am really excited to be presenting what we came up with and have been working incredibly hard to create. So basically now I have just turned my mobile phone into a fully simulated $1 million Ivy League laboratory with all this amazing equipment that I can interact with. I can, for instance, here pick up the pipettes and I could do experiments with it. I have my eGel, my PCR, and oh, look there, I have my next generation sequencing machine, and oh, even there I have my electron microscope. I mean, who's carrying around an electron microscope in their pocket? And here I have my machine. I can do different experiments on the machine, and over here I have the door. I can go into other experiments I can perform in the laboratories, and here I have my learning tablet. This is an intelligent tablet that allows me to read about relevant theory, and as you can see, I can interact with it, and I can watch videos and see content that is relevant to the experiment that I'm performing right now. And then over here I have Marie. She's my teacher, my lab assistant, and what she does is she guides me through this whole laboratory, and very soon the teachers will be able to literally teleport themselves into this virtual world that I'm in right now and help me guide me through this whole experiment. And now, before I finalize this, I want to show you an even cooler thing, I think, something you cannot even do in the real laboratories. This is a PCR machine, and I'm now going to start this experiment. And what I just did is I literally shrunk myself 1,000,000 times into the size of a molecule, and it really feels like it. You have to try this. It really is cool. So now it feels like I'm standing inside the machine, and I'm seeing all the DNA, and I see the molecule.
So with that, Michael, who are you, and when did you start Labster? I think you're on mute.
Michael, try unmuting yourself.
That worked. Thank you so much. Yeah, so thanks so much for that. And yeah, just very briefly, I'm the founder and CEO of Labster, and we're an organization of 350 people. And as you could see in the presentation here in the short video, we're really on a mission to transform education on a global level and truly inspire and empower educators and students all over the world to solve these important global challenges. Yeah, we worked on it for more than 10 years now, and truly excited about the overall mission we're on, but also the concept of a metaverse in general and the possibilities that it's going to enable both teachers and students. But as I also hope to share here today, some hopefully very inspiring stories on how we empowered brands, organizations, corporates, as well as institutions to truly revolutionize their brands by leveraging the power of the metaverse and the concepts of the metaverse. So my day today is really about working with our global teams of innovators, both within learning science, game design, as well as the core sciences themselves, with teams in Boston, Copenhagen, Switzerland, Zurich, and Bali, Indonesia, to really create these incredible learning simulations. As you saw some clips of here, there's way more in this entire learning metaverse. But really working with leading professors and institutions around the world to help them enter this metaverse and create these learning experiences in this modern world we're living in.
Thank you, Michael. So Shannon, what I'm curious about, when you look at education and you see to a certain extent that the pandemic has been such an accelerant for education, what are you seeing with brands, specifically CPG, financial services? What is the accelerant? What is the accelerator? Because it isn't COVID. What is it that changed the game?
I think there's a number of things, right? We all were forced very, very quickly into a world where we were only able to connect virtually. So whether that looked like a Zoom gathering with friends, or you spent your holiday, with your family in that way, or your children were at home with you, like mine were, Zoom schooling. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, right, platforms in the metaverse gained incredible traction during that time because our children, those were the places where our children were going to connect. They could no longer play sports or have play dates. And so the places they were going were platforms like Roblox, platforms like Fortnite, platforms like Minecraft, right? Where they were coming in and they were both actively participating in a virtual world. Truly, it was a world that was seamless for them. I think Michael will probably talk about this more later, but in that video, you were wearing a headset, but now technology has evolved to the degree that there is a 2.0 version of that where you don't need to be wearing the headset, and the 3.0 version looks like the world that we're all trying to imagine, where the connectivity and non-siloed and no walled gardens and all of that good stuff. But I think the truth is this notion of community and how you authentically show up in those worlds and this notion of self-expression in these worlds. Our children can express themselves in ways that are maybe completely contradictory to who they are in real life. Like the things my daughter's wearing in Roblox, I am like now supervising. I'm like, you can't wear that. So, I think, and then how we're seeing brands sort of, especially luxury brands, really made a quick and fast play into the metaverse, understanding that their future high net value, high net worth consumer, in order to create a relationship and community with them, that was where they needed to be spending their time. And so you're seeing those investments happening, whether they look like NFT drops, or they look like skins, or they look like full retail stores. That is happening. And that notion of how they are leading us, right? They have always led us, right? Like Facebook was, a community of people for college students that then quickly translated into a community for the entire world, right? And now has rebranded themselves Meta. So I think that we are seeing brands across industries. So it's not just luxury, right? You are seeing CPG. Gail, who's one of our agencies, did a large activation with Roblox for Milk Pep, which was an incredible success. And now, leaning into this sort of 2.0 version of that, that is, brands that can sort of find their authentic way and how to connect with their audience and have a reason for doing it. Those are the brands that are going to win over time. But it has been a tremendous catalyst. It is that notion of community, and suddenly our whole world turned upside down. And we're still talking, many of us, over Zoom, but our children are going into the metaverse to have their conversations and have their playtime and have their connections.
So to that end, we were talking about storytelling and just immersive experiences. And at the end of the day, it is about players or brands providing value, right? So what is the framework for a brand to define their value in the metaverse? Like, what is the framework that they should be thinking about, Shannon?
No, I think it's really understanding, what industry are you in, right? Michael is in education, right? That there's extreme value across, right now, I think you're serving high school and above, but like there's such exceptional value you're providing, right? Then it comes down to what is the expectation of the consumer, right? So the way to sort of architect it, I think about, which is, first of all, most of the growth of this space is happening through Gen Z and Gen Alpha, right? Which is Gen Alpha is now, 2010 and over, children that were born after 2010. And the truth is, right, is they are leading the way. So how are you thinking about, a lot of these areas are oriented around storytelling. Are you on a mission? Are you trying to solve something like Michael was talking about in his video? Some of the biggest global challenges around sustainability and science, and something that I'm very interested in, if you know me well, is gene therapy, right? Like how are, we tackling those challenges? And in the brand world, it looks more like how are you engaging with your consumer authentically in a way that allows them to express themselves? So this notion of self-expression, I said it before, I'll say it a million times, and everyone before me said it, right? Which is, your digital avatar, which you could have multiple of in the metaverse. You don't have to just be one digital avatar. I can be one in Fortnite. I can be one in Roblox. I could be one in Labster. I can be a different digital avatar everywhere I go. And how I define myself can be different in all of those environments. But I get to show up, right? And that will look the same in enterprise eventually, right? When we're all like, if you have the Snap camera kit, I could come in now as my avatar, which would have been more fun probably and enjoyable for everyone to just have an avatar conversation. But like, I think that's how, with the brand, are you on Discord? Do you understand how people are having conversations and orienting around community? How fast those conversations move? Do you have a Roblox account? Go in, set one up, understand how these people are conversing and communing inside of these environments, and then ultimately understand, back to that kind of what is your role? Like, what do you want to achieve? What does your community want from you? The truth is, in the metaverse, communities define what's important, right? you can start to understand more about, what role can you play? Is it that you set up a coffee shop because really people just want to hang out, and therefore, but there's a store next to you that you can go, you have a little pop-up that you can go buy, the handbag or the, sneakers or whatever before you go to the coffee shop. And maybe you get a real world version of that, or maybe you're just buying it digitally. And for this generation, they don't care, right? They just don't care. The notion of ownership they were talking about the last call isn't the same as what we define as ownership. So I think that's what's this notion of experience, that the environment that Michael is providing for these next generation scientists and nurses and people that are in the spirit of lifelong learning and access for all, like that's going to transform everything from the music industry to the entertainment industry to healthcare and education. So it's such a great, exciting time to be in this space.
So Michael, when we think about immersive experiences and really changing the game, I know that you probably have a few different stakeholders. Would it be students and teachers and tutors, and like, how does this all work? What is the journey for the individuals that are working currently in the metaverse with Labster?
Yeah, so like you're very spot on. There's many different stakeholders, and they have different profile that we think about and different value adds from the metaverse. So we work closely both with industry or corporations such as biotech and pharma companies, but in the education space, we think a lot about what kind of experiences do teachers need to improve their ability to teach and educate their students, and what kind of solutions do the students need specifically. And when we talk about students, specifically, there's so many potential new opportunities that we can leverage from the gaming industry or the metaverse specifically, sort of more generally, and bring that into the education space. And that we work really hard with experts within both learning sciences, game design, and core sciences. And some of those aspects that we really focus a lot on leveraging is especially the gamification aspects, or storytelling, as we talked about here, is an incredible motivator and an incredible way to create engagement and connection with your audience in the metaverse. And it really opens up ways, for instance, in education, to show the students how they can apply their skills to learning in real world settings as well, and translating that virtual learning into real world scenarios. So that's a really powerful way that we leverage a lot and work with leading game designers and incredible game design researchers as well, to always innovate in that space. Besides that, there are so many new possibilities in the metaverse that I think many of us don't really initially think about. I showed one fun example in the video that we just showed you in the beginning, the fact that you can shrink yourself 1,000,000 times and actually stand next to a DNA strand and try to inspect it really close up is mind-bogglingly effective for helping students understand the concept of a DNA or a molecule much, much better. How does a protein work? The fact that proteins are really small machines that are operating inside our body is really such a weird concept that experiencing that in a metaverse environment is far more effective at actually helping students understand it. Then there are also aspects such as time. Time is actually a factor that we can affect as well in the metaverse. We can speed up time, slow down time, and it allows you to perform experiments that typically would take years or weeks, just weeks. You can do that in a few seconds. And this opens up for a whole new space of learning through rapid failure and iteration, so trial and error, and allow students to experiment and fail in these virtual worlds is something that is really effective in helping them learn faster and understand concepts. And that's also something you don't want to do in the real world. Like you can imagine a teacher asking their science chemistry students to just go into the lab and have fun and just fail around and create a few explosions. But we actually do encourage them that in the metaverse. This is actually one of the things that we found to create better learning experiences that you can't even do in the physical world. So that's the student side of it. Now, if we look at the teacher side, you can relate it also a little bit to being a parent, observing your students in the metaverse. Like, how do you do that in a smart way, or in a way that's also responsible? And how can we keep track of all those different interactions in a way that actually is helpful for the teachers? And their data and understanding how students are navigating these learning experiences are super important. And so we work again very hard with learning science and data scientist experts to understand and observe the relevant interactions that students are making in their learning journeys, and translating that into aggregated often anonymized data sets that the teachers can leverage for their follow-up lectures. So imagine a simple example. You give your students a homework exercise. Go home, kids, play this game, have fun, learn about Mars, for instance. Go to Mars and learn about that. But then the next day, next morning, the teacher gets a data set, a report showing exactly how the students were interacting, what were the challenges that they were having, or the biggest challenges they were facing, and where there may be a group of students, or you can say a group of customers, right? But a group of students who were specifically experiencing the metaverse in a certain way and others in another way. And do you want to maybe tailor your follow-up lectures in such a way that you can customize it to the specific groups of segments of students? So we work continuously on creating dashboards and essentially tools to, as I like to say, turn the teachers into superheroes in this metaverse, really giving them the data, the insights, the tools to empower them to give the best possible experience for the students as well in the metaverse. And maybe I'll pause there, but I could go on.
So Shannon, from the standpoint of practicality, because again, I kind of look at it as Michael's had a little bit of freedom to experiment. He's, being such an early adopter and really playing in this genre so early, it is probably a test and learn. But because the metaverse has become so accelerated and so many brands do want to play, what do you suggest as kind of a test and learn sequence so that while the window is wide open and all of us are trying to figure it out, that we aren't left behind? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, after you sort of do your discovery phase a little, right, which I think is an important piece of that, I think then you can start to think about, talking to these platforms, right? Talk to Roblox, talk to Fortnite, especially because gaming is such a great use case, right? It's an easy use case for brands to start to participate. And so, as you're thinking about those budgets, those test and learn budgets, those innovation budgets, how can you think about either, a product inside of the metaverse, right? And the role that it will play. And for example, actually I'll save that example, but then there might be a storyline or an experience you can host, what we've seen with musical concerts, for example, inside of Roblox and Fortnite, or the Galactics event, which was, 15.3 million people concurrently on inside of Fortnite, playing this game together, or the Travis Scott concert or the Ariana Grande experience. Can you host an experience inside of one of these environments? Can you create a storyline? So, Spirit, I don't know if any of you have little girls, but, Spirit, the horse, right? They have a storyline inside of a Roblox game that, she goes on a mission, but it's in one of the already sort of the horse, sort of environments, right? So can you start to participate in another environment? And, then you have things where you could do a pop-up. So like American Eagle did a pop-up in NBA 2K, and then there's something that's more dramatic, like, build Nike Land. And, those are but I think if you're going to do that, right, there's other things to consider, which is how are you maintaining those worlds? Because the truth is, this is, marketers, we often think in campaign, and actually the better way I believe to think about it is community. So if you want to use a bit, if you want to test something, you can test a land, experience for like, a game. But if you truly want to start to migrate into this world, you're looking at operations, you're looking at mechanics, you're looking at updates, you're looking at nurturing those communities. And so, that's an investment, but there are ways to test and learn into these environments. And then you can surround, I think in the last panel, they were talking about omni-channel, which is so important as it relates to the metaverse. It is not, if you build it, they will come. That is not how this works, right? This is very much, use creators, use influencers in the space where again, back to the topicality, back to the way that these audiences are operating in these platforms and how they're conversing and how they're communing around topicality. If you're gonna do a Roblox game, go and it's in, sports or whatever, go and partner with influencers, right? Who actually can then be your authentic voice around that content and around that experience that will draw more people into your gameplay. And then what you do with them when you're there is how do you authentically host them in that environment? So for example, with our Milk Pep example for Gail, milk was the power up. Milk was the hero that got you to the next level of performance. And in the context of a sports game designed around karate, BMX biking, rock climbing, and skateboarding, that's really important, right? So that utility of the product in the environment was authentic and important. And I think that's also, if you're going to test any of these things, understanding that role and that utility and that importance to the community, either by asking them or testing and trialing, is very important, because you kind of get maybe 1 or 2 shots, and then you have to sort of sit back and say why. You should always say, why are we going here? That should be your first question.
No, exactly, Michael. I know that you've worked with a number of large tech companies, Google and others, early days in exploring kind of the test and learn concept. What are you seeing as kind of expanding the metaverse into, is it a learning island or a learning metaverse island, horizon? What is that exactly?
Yeah, I think so. Several, I think there are really several great stories of how brands, or in our case, institutions, have really leveraged the potential of the metaverse. One example was our collaboration together with Google and with Arizona State University to essentially create an entire virtual biology college degree, 4-year degree, entirely online, fully accredited, never done before. To this day, I think it's even the only one still existing, and one of the most popular degrees as well at the university. And it really, of course, helped Arizona State University solidify themselves as really one of the world's innovators within not just the metaverse or virtual learning, but more generally as well. So I think there's great opportunity there for those who are able to move fast in these spaces. And it doesn't have to be huge or large investments that like this. This was a 4-year college degree, so that was a massive virtual, you're going to see it, a virtual learning island we essentially built, where students can go in and they can go to different parts of the island, take different courses, and acquire key skills that they level up in this virtual world. But again, the key here is, of course, compared to World of Warcraft, where you get rather useless skills in a virtual world, these skills you can actually apply to solving real world global challenges and get real world jobs as well. But simpler examples that we did as well was working with biotech or large pharma companies to actually create virtual learning experiences for their customers. So they essentially access sales demos. So you can imagine having a product or experience that a large biotech company want to promote, a new type of electrophoresis machine or electron microscope or any type of advanced equipment that would cost millions of dollars and would be too expensive to even bring to a conference floor in a physical world. You can now do these things virtually, invite hundreds of thousands of customers in, interact with your customers one-on-one or in groups presentations, and allow your customers to engage with the product or even talk to other customers in these virtual worlds. And so these things are already happening. We work with several corporates and are still doing now to create these virtual mini metaverses essentially for each corporate. And as was said earlier, also in the earlier presentations, again, the metaverse is still an evolving concept. We are building a virtual learning island. That's one of the many metaverses, and these virtual avatars the students have will, of course, be connected eventually. But right now I have a virtual learning avatar in Labster, or even within my individual institution. And that may be different if I'm visiting one of our corporate clients as well, but they're metaverse. So yeah.
And how does it change? Because, I think that the category is interesting around access for all, and it becomes more important, perhaps, or equally important in higher education, where universities need to revisit maybe what the opportunity is long-term to democratize education. I know that that is not probably the tip of the spear for a self-expressive beauty brand, perhaps. Maybe it's joyfulness or hopefulness or sense of self. But I think specifically in higher education, it is reimagining access for all, correct? Both at the faculty level and the student level. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the things I'm super excited about. And our mission really at Labster here is, again, to reach 100 million students all over the world, give equal access to the world's best possible education by partnering with thousands of institutions, which we are actively doing already today, right? And the only way and the reason we can do that is because we can keep the costs of these high quality learning experiences incredibly low, and allowing and enabling these institutions anywhere in the world to give access to the students, even just on a small mobile phone, as we talked. It doesn't have to be a immersive VR headset, it can also be on their mobile phone. So reducing costs is a massive thing. We even work with leading institutions around the world, Ivy League top institutions, where equipment they need to teach sometimes costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we've shown now in studies that we can help reduce cost by up to 90%. And at the same time, still improve the learning outcomes for the students by leveraging the power of these immersive, interactive, collaborative learning experiences in these metaverses. So cost is a big one. I would though say, and just to add on our earlier conversations around storyline, it's not, cost is a big thing, a big factor. You can really dramatically reduce cost and create immersive experiences. But the engagement piece that the way you can engage with your audience through these virtual experiences is a huge, huge value. And it translates directly into dollars for our customers, our institutions, because dropout rates are decreasing. Students stay more engaged with the learning experiences, just as they would with maybe a product if you have a really immersive, engaging experience, like we just heard from Shannon there. And so this is allowing the institutions to reduce dropout rates, keep the students on board, and ultimately increase revenue as well for themselves, and of course their impact as well around the world. So yes. So the short answer is yes to your question.
Shannon, I'm shifting back to you because I'm really interested in kind of the future of work and what it means for builders and creators. So it's not just the marketers and how we're going to fit or how we're going to play in the metaverse, but the kind of intoxicating level of opportunity for next gen as creators and builders of this new world. What's your perspective?
I think enterprise is going to be a huge, we're already doing it, right? And our children are doing it. And Michael's building, universes for our children to go learn and explore. And so, the learning is one of those things, right? Lifelong learning. How we think about professional development could look like, I'm going to go and I'm going to take a course in higher education like people are now, that's going to be a year-long course or a quick, an executive MBA program. And that might be in the metaverse as opposed to, me having to do like nights and weekends. And my ability to collaborate with my teams will look and feel different, to the point of like the practical application driving better outcomes. That ability to have that hands-on experience around a group project or whatever will be very important, and sort of in the same spirit as the work. One of the things that I think many of us are missing, I personally am missing it, is that in-person collaboration where we get around a whiteboard and we think about, what's the key insight, and then how should that drive a creative strategy, and then what are the applications for that, and the big idea, and then what are we going to do with it? Like the energy that comes along with that is something that is palpably missing for me over like Zoom, right? So the metaverse from an enterprise perspective will allow us to come together, as our digital avatars, right? So I might be wearing something different than I'm wearing now, but it will be a version of self-expression. It will be where I can hands-on collaborate. It will be where we can have communication. You can see, obviously Facebook rebranded as Meta, and they have their Horizon, and Microsoft is treading into the space with Teams and imagining how that will work. But you can imagine communications companies like Zoom starting to think about what the metaverse looks like for them, because they are a communications company, right? So I think that I think we're a little ways off, to be honest, but I think we are leapfrogging. The thing is all of this is being created in real time. And we are the last generation that is sort of in rapid adoption, to be honest. Maybe not Michael, but like most of, me and some of my contemporaries, right? So it's, this is going to move so quickly that, soon enough it will be. Remember, I don't know if anyone remembers like the Cisco, technology where you could walk into a boardroom, you could walk into the conference room and then it looked like you were sitting at a round table. The next version of us is like us sitting as our digital avatars in that conference room, but then somebody gets up and they're like, let's do the whiteboard session. That is going to create camaraderie, but also to that end, what you were just talking about, access for all, right? It democratizes in much the way that we love seeing someone's pet or child or, whatever show up in a conference call, because like we were all like, the struggle was real. The authenticity that this has created in our own work environments can more easily translate into the metaverse than ever before. And I think that is the power of like us getting to be humans and professionals, which may also change the ways we collaborate, which may change the ideas that we have, which may change empathy levels, which may promote, you know, more diversity, equality, inclusion. Like there's so many powerful things that can come out of the metaverse as it relates to enterprise and how we work together.
Yeah, as a shift, the idea of better, broader, faster for students to just get a leg up on the future and have like an equal playing field for solving these problems, Michael, I get that. I really do understand why the students are drawn to a seamless world, a hybrid world that's both virtual and real. I just think it's so critical that the champions that we're asking to, I guess, upskill, that we provide real critical value to the teachers or to the institutions. So I would think it's far more than just the students enjoying the metaverse and finding how exciting and engaging and immersive it is and how successful they are as students. It's making sure that it's as easy as possible, I would think, for the teachers, because I cannot even imagine the weight on them in this transformation post-COVID. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's yes, you're absolutely right. There's two aspects to it, especially. One is the creation part, the creation of the metaverse, and the other one is for teachers to utilize the power of the metaverse. So we start with the latter one first. So as I mentioned also early on, we work really hard on creating digestible dashboards on how their students are engaged and interacting in these metaverses, which is a rather complex thing to do. If you have hundreds, in some cases even thousands of students that are navigating these virtual worlds, how do you summarize in a meaningful way what their interactions are for the teacher so that they can leverage that in their follow-up lectures, or even how they design their curriculum, or how do they learn from the experiences the students have so they can improve that overall curriculum going forward, which is super important for any innovative or any institution for that matter. On the other side, I'm also really excited on the creators piece, right? So all these different metaverses that we see now have different versions of creator tools that enables people that have to varying degrees of programming skills, allow them to create these virtual interactive experiences. So we work really hard at Labster to create what we call the Labster Builder, but it's basically a creator tool that takes in years of research in game design, in pedagogical design, curriculum design, and essentially make it as simple as possible with small, easy building blocks, and allowing educators who may have a great experience and knowledge around how they teach and educate their students, but may not have the game design experience or understanding yet of how to leverage all the power of the metaverse. And so by creating a creator tool where it's really more a building block approach, and you can allow the educators to help co-create these virtual worlds that we're building, we're really opening up the doors and giving equal access as well to creators all over the world, educators who want to be participating, which could even also be the students, which is quite exciting. So yeah, so that's a big part of the metaverse that's also in its, I would say, in early stages for many of these different tools. And in many cases, I still find that the tools are still too cumbersome or are not easy enough to use. So that's one thing that we really invest a lot in ensuring that it is. So, yeah.
You know, it's interesting. You make I think, kind of hope maybe some of the point you were getting to, which is, you know, I think also, you know, as we think about the future of our workforce and our people and talent, right, this notion of, you know, professional development and learning and being a creator within your organization, right? And how can HR professionals and our kind of leadership teams think about this notion of creating worlds within the metaverse, right? These opportunities within the metaverse to continue learning, and thereby also, you know, that changes how, you know, the people you're able to hire. It changes how people want to stay with your organization. And I think, you know, as we think about that, the platforms that start to enable that, you know, for enterprise, you know, as it relates to businesses and corporations and things like that, that will be a very powerful tool in how we nurture, you know, attract and nurture our workforce.
So Sydney, are we wrapping up, or do we have a minute or two? I have one last question.
Yeah, you can finalize your last question, but just a minute or so.
Okay. So knowing what you know now, Michael,
Yes.
what would you have done differently? What is your advice for founders, leaders, marketers, excuse me, marketers that are venturing into the metaverse, what would you have done differently, or what would you say other than be brave and dive in?
I think definitely dive in. It's massive potential. This is as clearly as it is. This is a huge move and trend that's massively accelerating. We worked on it for 10 years. Super excited to see how it's moving now. And I would say leverage the hundreds of millions of dollars that are already being invested into the metaverse. For instance, through these creator tools, and leverage these platforms that are already there. Don't try to recreate the wheel every single time. I think we need, or there's so much potential for you to just explore and use the tools that are already available out there. That would be my general advice to capture the most value from the metaverse opportunities.
I would also think like power of partnerships. Shannon, what's your perspective?
1,000%, right? I think, the Bloomberg Intelligence says that the metaverse is going to be an $800 billion marketplace by 2024. So if you're not treading or starting to learn about it, and as a marketer now, and a lot of innovation within companies around the metaverse is coming from marketing departments. So start learning, educate yourself, become a champion, start talking about it, because culture is being created in these communities every single day. And you have this unique window, where we're able to kind of get our feet wet, but then, many organizations are creating test and learn budgets. Use some of that budget to start to talk to the right partners who know what they're doing. If this is your first time, you need to go to a platform and work with third-party developers who know what they're doing. You need to, you can work with entities. For milk, we worked with Super Awesome, who are a great partner. Snap has a number of interesting ways that they're thinking about the metaverse and can partner. So it's just, I think there's lots of ways in, but making sure that you're starting is super important. And this is going to accelerate quickly. I don't think that any of us should kid ourselves that, this will go faster than what we saw with Facebook. This will go faster than what we saw with Instagram and WhatsApp and Snapchat. And all you have to do really is look at APAC, and you start to see what the future will really look like for many of us, because they are far ahead of us always in these spaces. It's such an exciting time. So just learning will even be the best way in, and start talking to partners. The power of partnership, Hope, is everything, because that's where we learn everything. And if you're just curious enough, that's all you got to do. And then the floodgates will open.